Welcome to the hottest show in the galaxy. I just literally just threw the bio away because that was a perfect intro. Let me thank you, first of all, Daymond John, for agreeing to sit with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, this is important. Our show is we start out with money, power, and respect, and now we've moved on to being healthy, wealthy, and wise. And considering the climate, I felt like, every day we need to devote ourselves to helping to move the needle in people's lives. People are feeling very helpless. And the best way to do that is through stories and showing people that things can happen. And that's part of the reason why I guess you wrote Rise and Grind. There's so many different people's stories that you share to show how grinding has led to the rising. Was that the emphasis?
Yeah, it is, and it was, and this. I didn't actually go out to write the book. I went out to discover some new techniques and some new ways to be more productive in my life at a certain age, at 48 years old, when I was researching this, and then I realized that so many other people need to know about this, because the theory of rise and grind is not get up and work yourself till you're dead. That's actually the opposite of what it is, right? As I share in the book with the 14 or 15 subjects that I have in the book, you'll see that everybody really executed to be more efficient daily. They executed probably about the same 12 things, but they all did them in totally different ways.
I love it. So let's go back a little bit. I was at the Daily News when I first discovered you. There was this little company called FUBU, For Us, By Us, and I was doing some rap pieces. I think I was on the editorial page at the time, and writing some features for some extra dough. And I was inspired by these kids. We were all young, from Queens, doing hats. I think you started with some hats, and that turned into, because at the time it was Carl Kanai, it was Cross Colors, and then FUBU, and I'm like, something's going on here. And I remember meeting you at you were at the Empire State Building at the time, like amazing. And to tell people that story, because to come from where you came from, and the intro tells it all. Dyslexic, didn't go to college. How did you have the gumption to decide to do what you did with FUBU?
I just saw that I was so in love with this new music that I would call a disruptive technology today. It was called hip hop. At that time when there wasn't Instagram or Snapchat or things of that nature, we really didn't know what was going on in the streets of Detroit or the streets of Compton. But through this music, these kids who didn't no longer had to harmonize and play an instrument. They were conversing about what was going on, their political issues, what they love, what they hate. And hip hop came with a way to dress and way to walk and talk and everything else. And as we started to go and buy clothes and reinterpret them for the streets, we realized that the designers really didn't like us, whether we were African American or minorities or white kids, whoever it is who loved rap. And I said, well, who's ever going to really value their customer and respect their customer? And we're even seeing that still till today, that people may not value certain genres or cultures of individuals. And I just started making a brand called For Us, By Us. And people always thought it was purely only for African Americans, but I didn't want to be racist and prejudiced the way the other companies were. So it wasn't. It was always about a culture, and at that time, I would dress NSYNC, or today I would love to dress Eminem, and I don't care what color you are, as long as you're a bad mamma jamma, as far as I'm concerned, on the mic. And I went out and I just started standing on the corner and selling my couple of hats. But I've grown up in the greatest city of all, New York City, and the best thing about New York City is you stand on the Apollo Theater, outside the Apollo Theater at midnight, trying to sell some hats to people coming out of the Apollo Theater. They tell you what you think about your hat and your mama.
That is true. And speaking of your mother was responding. I'm not going to do any mama jokes because I'm pretty good at the dozens, but I think Daymond's got some work for me as well. Your mother was instrumental in helping to fund your dream. As many young entrepreneurs, you didn't know anything about credit, money, budgets. You just knew you had an idea. You were going to go and stand out on the corner and sell it, and you ran into some financial issues, and your mother had to come there and take care of some business for you.
Yeah, I didn't have financial intelligence, and as entrepreneurs, when you're growing a business, you can't know everything, how to market, distribute, finance, and everything else. And FUBU, I opened and closed 3 times from '89 to '92. I wouldn't get public recognition until '96 or '97. And at one time, I had built the proof of concept so large that when I went to Vegas to a trade show in Vegas, I wrote $300,000 worth of orders, and I remember coming home and I got turned down by 27 banks because I didn't really know how to fill out a.
Wait, so pause. You had $300,000.
I had $300,000 in orders,
and no bank would fund that.
No bank would fund it, but it's not the bank's fault. I didn't have anything to collateralize it on. Number one, and number two, I didn't know how to fill out a loan request. I really just didn't know. My loan request was like, "Hey, yo, I'm out here in these streets. Woo! And I'm trying to get this paper." So when I got turned down by all the banks, my mother had said to me, we had our little house, and she said, "I wouldn't do this for you if you didn't have these orders. But if you do, this is all we have is our house. Why don't we go out and try to take as much money as we can out of the house? And why don't we, you make the clothes, and as soon as you make the money, you put it back in the house." So my mother goes out and gets $100,000 loan on our house. Till today, I don't know how, because the house was worth $75. I still don't ask. I don't ask her what she did for the rest of the damn money. You know what I mean?
Black mama
Mama figured it out. My lack of financial intelligence would still set in again, because the $100,000 would turn into $500 left and 4 months later on the mortgage, which they were going to take the house. Because I was trying to manufacture the clothes, but because I didn't have financial intelligence, I was paying for raw goods 90 days ahead of time. I was paying for a staff, shipping, and the stores don't pay you for 30, 60, 90 days. Again, it went back to me having a passion and a drive, but having no understanding of how the tool of money works.
So take me to the moment where you realized you almost had your mother's house.
It was almost gone.
Right. What
it was when I looked in and I realized that I was 4 months late on the mortgage, and I'm like most. I was at that time like most families. I don't pay attention to a bill until it says final cutoff notice or whatever the case is, right? And I realized they were going to come take it. And then she came back to me and said, you need OPM. And I said, "What's OPM?" She said, "Not other people's money. It could be other people's manufacturing, mind power, manpower, mentors. You need a strategic partner." I said, "I don't know what the hell a strategic partner is, but whatever." She said, "I need $2,000. So I go back to Red Lobster. I worked for about a month.
Where you were working? So
I was working at Red Lobster. So I
this
was
was
working at Red
before
Lobster for 5
Beyonce said
years.
she was going to take him to Red Lobster.
Yeah. No, I was working at Red Lobster for 5 years as I was doing FUBU.
At the same time?
At the same time, right? And I go back there, and I after about a month, I bring my mother $2,000, and then she takes an ad in the newspaper. And the ad in the newspaper says, $1 million in orders, need financing. And 33 people call that ad. Now, 30 of them were named Pookie and Laquita, Quaqua for short, and Sal the sausage, and 125% interest, had to live in there out of collateral. But 3 of them were real, and one was a $200 billion privately held conglomerate, Samsung. And I ended up doing a manufacturing and distribution deal with Samsung.
And that was when?
That's when FUBU started to take off, because now we had a strategic partner, and now my partners and I had the ability to go and do what we did best, market and go out there and really show value to this emerging market called hip hop, and just really respect and value our customer and deliver them a core product that they felt that they needed.
We're talking with Daymond John. He's the author. Oh, he's got a couple of books under his belt. Rise and Grind is the latest, and you know him from Shark Tank, of course. But as I'm listening to you, I'm hearing, and I'm grateful that you went out on this journey to shore up some things in your life, even though you're wildly successful, because you weren't satisfied. You still felt that you needed to grow. And I think a lot of times people reach a pinnacle and they relax and they get comfortable.
They either relax or they think they can relax. There is no number in a bank account or a corner office or in a car the size of a house that would give you I don't believe they'll give you the reason to just stop. People think that success just comes and you just stop. I've made it. I could walk on water. It doesn't happen. You're always in search. If you are somebody who has gotten to the level of success, you're always going to seek out more success spiritually, family. Hopefully it will be health, because if you don't have that, you won't never have any other aspect of success. You know, who is a parent right now listening to us who can never say, I did the best job ever as a parent? You don't realize until the day you're dead and you turn around and you look at your daughters or your children and you say, wow, they've become productive individuals in this world. Like, you know, they'll always be your babies, right? And your career and your life will always be your baby. You'll always try to improve it. I hope.
No, I couldn't agree more. You know, every day I ask that question, what can I do more of? Yeah. What can I do better? But I'm listening also to the progression of Daymond John, right?
Sure.
The language has changed. The way in which you talk about business and money is like you basically are speaking another language now than you spoke, of course, when you first started FUBU.
Absolutely.
But how did that progression happen?
You know, I think that progression happened by, you know, losing a lot of people in my life, gaining a lot of people in my life, seeing what was really important. Challenging myself personally. You know, listen, when FUBU started to decline, you know, I questioned myself like anybody else would and said, you know, maybe I was a one-hit wonder. Maybe I just, you know, bit the apple, you know, a golden apple one time, and then I would go out and acquire other brands. I would fail at many of them. I would then become successful in one or two of them. I would acquire a brand named Coogee and put out other brands. And then I said to myself, you know, am I a designer, or am I a marketer, or am I a distributor? So then I would say, you know, I'll go on to this show, Shark Tank. I don't think it's ever going to work, this crappy little show. I'll go on to the show because I need more brands to go and sell to the big department stores, because I'm only selling
So
clothes.
This was a real, like, you know, when I watch Shark Tank, you know, I know a lot of it is TV.
Yeah.
You know, but you're actually... And I've seen commercials where some of you like invested in companies, but you know, and one of them I eat all the time, Pipcorn, and I'm like, this was on Shark Tank.
That's Barbara's deal, isn't it?
Yeah, I almost say it. I didn't want to get you upset about that, David.
Yeah.
You know, but I wonder how much investment is it real, or is it TV? You know.
So the reality of Shark Tank, of what we shoot, is way more real than what you see. Right? Because this is real people's lives on the line. This is our real money. Because trust me, if ABC was giving me the money, I'd be like Oprah. You got a deal, and you got a deal. My cousin Pookie would be on the show. He'd get a deal, give me some money on the side. You know, those pitches can last. They generally last 45 minutes, but they can last as long as 2.5 hours. You're seeing. You know, we watch people faint. We watch people cry. Barbara is a pervert.
Say what
you know,
now?
Mark's a know-it-all.
Allegedly, I'm gonna save you because I don't know how litigious she is. We're in a very strange time, Daymond John.
You now.
All right. All right. Do you have receipts? Are there pictures?
Yeah, there's pictures. Right. Yes, there's pictures. You know, Kevin O'Leary, we all know, he's the token butthole on the show. Like, you know, but it is real. It is as real as possible. And these people are coming there with their life on the line. And we are fortunate enough to be able to invest in their dream and take a ride with them and learn from them as well. And it's real business. And, you know, after 10 years, so many people have tried to punch holes in it. And these businesses and these people are real.
Biggest mistakes you've seen of people pitching?
Biggest mistakes I've seen of people pitching is not knowing their numbers, not admitting where they have fallen, because anybody who's successful knows that you just didn't climb straight up. The best thing to say is, hey, I did this, then I busted my butt here. I still had the drive, and I figured out what else I should do. To say that the market is a $50 billion market, if I only get 1% of 1% of 1%, so is the bankruptcy market, too. You may get 1% of that, too, right? You know, speak in hypothetical things. You know, you have the right to make up your own opinions, but you can't make up your own facts. And, you know, when we're on the show and we're giving you an autopsy, we want to know the real. And we're going to find out sooner or later. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when you see those deals close on the show, they technically don't close there. It takes us anywhere from 3 months to 9 months to close the deals. And about 80% of them or 70% of them close. Some of them don't. Because we'll sit there and say, why didn't you tell me you owe the IRS $1 million? They'd be like, you didn't ask. you know, so, you know, but the show is as real as it gets.
In 10 years, your best investment?
It's very hard to say. I would say a couple because some have been I brought in and I flipped them quickly. Some have grown from 100 to 200 to 400. So the ones that I can name off the top of my head quickly is a company called Bombas Socks. Bombas
They
Socks.
actually advertised on our show first, and I love them.
Bombas Socks.
Because they actually give socks to homeless people and folks. If you
for
buy
every
a
one pair they buy, you buy, they
Why'd
give
you
a pair
invest
away.
in them?
Because again, the sharks are learning too. So when they pitched, they were doing about $800,000 annually. They're going to do about $50 million this year. But I said I have a bunch of socks in my warehouse, FUBU socks, and I was like, and you can't see them when people wear them, so you really can't brand them. I don't want to do this, but I realized they were disrupting the market. They were selling direct to the consumer. They didn't need retail. And every time the consumer bought something, they felt like they were giving to the community. And as I started to learn. See, the sharks, I think, learn the most from the show. And these young men are doing business a totally new way that I did not do business. And I learned from them alone that the millennials today, instead of, traditionally how we gave money at the end of the year, the millennials want to give money towards something every time they make a purchase. So at the end of the year, they've given to 2,000 organizations, right? And it changed my way of thinking of delivering products to people with a social cause, as well as hopefully making a profit.
Give me another one.
Al Bubba Baker's boneless ribs.
Abba who what?
Al Bubba Baker's boneless ribs. Big
I do
bear
remember
of
him.
a man.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Football player.
Yes.
I think he was Rookie of the Year in the 70s for the Detroit Lions. So the man loves to make barbecue, right? But of course, behind every great invention, there is a wife who don't give a shit about what you're doing, right? And he would love to make barbecue, but his wife said, you can never bring barbecue in the house. A little short woman said, can't bring barbecue in the house because I don't like the bones. It gets caught in my nails and in my teeth. You're forbidden to bring barbecue in the house. He goes out and finds out how to technically pull the bones out of the ribs, and he has a patent on the product and the process. And now he has these boneless ribs. We did a deal with Carl's Jr. And now you can take ribs and make a quesadilla with them, or a salad, or various different things. And he's so passionate about it, and that's what I love about him. Because one day he was limping.
You stay in touch. You're like
all day. Oh yeah, we speak often. One day he was limping, and I said, "Al, tell me the story. Was it like you were against the Giants, or were you against what were you playing against? Tell me the story." And he was like, I was in a barbecue contest and I was pulling a brisket out and I stepped in a damn rabbit hole. The man was in the NFL for 12 years and the only way he got hurt was by a rabbit hole pulling out a brisket. That's when I realized he's a great partner.
I love it. We're gonna take a break. When we come back, and I want you to kind of lay out the 12 things that everyone in this book is doing.
Sure.
All right. And even though they do it differently, there's a process to success. There's a formula and a blueprint. And Rise and Grind is the way that you can get all of that knowledge.
That's right.
Daymond John's in the house, y'all. It's the Karen Hunter Show. We'll be right back. Yes, welcome back. Welcome back to the hottest show in the galaxy.
That's right. It's on fire.
This is Urban View. I have to say that. We have a channel that is risen. We are grinding and we rise every single day.
That's right.
It's amazing content. And part of it is because as a channel, we're committed to making a difference in the lives of the people who listen. And right now we're on a voter registration drive. We're out there. But everyone has their part to play. In your book, you have so many different people who have done different things to get to a place. Talk to me about the 12 things you say that everyone has.
It's an average of 12 to 15 things, and the people in the book, I made sure that I wanted to touch various different segments of people's lives, and the people in the book are Santana, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Gary Vee, but also people that you will never hear of. A woman named Lola Alvarez who has 2 kids who are dyslexic, and how she deals with that, and a young man who is my favorite. Is Kyle Maynard. He was born with no arms and no legs, and Army crawled Mount Kilimanjaro. And what I wanted to know was, at 48 years old, I realized I had 60 companies. I have a brand new baby girl at home, and my own company, my own life. And the Daymond John at 20 could sleep for 2 hours and get up and go to Red Lobster and then come back and sew hats and do whatever. But the Daymond John at 48 years old can't do that. And I wanted to try to get some some tips and pointers on how people become more productive. So the main thing that I found that most of these people do, number one, is they're selfish, inclusive of myself. Very, very selfish, but selfish in a good way. Selfish in a way that you look at someone like a Michael Jordan, he wouldn't go to everybody else's practice. He goes to his practice first so he can be the best contributor to the team. Most of these people, they will write their own obituary. They'll write it today, and they'll want to know, did I live the life that I wanted to live, or did I live for everybody else? They make sure that they write their obituary.
At what point? This is an assignment. I teach journalism at Hunter College, and my basic reporting class, my first assignment is to have all my students write their obituary, and it freaks them out,
Yeah.
So I'll give them some things that aren't true, because the obituary has to be absolutely true, except for the one thing that you died, and
Right.
then what you died of. So I'll have them die of a dinosaur bite, because that
Right.
can't happen, because people are superstitious.
Sure.
But what it does invariably is it forces them to focus on what they haven't done yet, or where
Yeah.
they are in the moment, and it is sobering.
It is.
At what point do you think people should write their own obituaries?
I would, listen, as unfortunately, as growing up as a young African American male, I was promised or told that I would not live past the age of 21. I'd die or be in jail. I think
Who's
that
telling you that?
it was the
is this a
cops, it
narrative?
was the streets, it was the teachers, it was the people in my neighborhood. It was then soaked into the people that lived in the neighborhood, and they would repeat it. You become what you think about most of the time. But my mother would break those stigmatism down, because she showed me so much love, and she showed me that I could be anything and anybody that I wanted to be. But I think that you should write it at a pretty young age. I think you should write it at 15, at 20, at 30. And the reason why at 15, I think, is it then gives you a roadmap to where you should start to go. It's not because you're supposed to look at the time that was wasted. You're going to look at the time that you can maximize at that point. And if you write the obituary, you will realize, did you live for yourself or somebody else? One of the main groups of people who start new businesses are empty nesters, because they realize that for most of their life, they were somebody's husband, wife, son, daughter. They went to become a doctor because their family said they should, and they never wanted to do that. And now they're going to come out and create their own business of what they want to do in life. Should they have written their obituary at 20, 21 years old to say, maybe I don't want to go to medical school because I'm just not set up for that. So a lot of them write their obituary. They also do a couple of things. When they wake up in the morning, they don't answer any emails. They will not answer any emails for the first hour. Most of them will not answer emails for the first hour. Because if you wake up in the morning answering emails, you're answering everybody else's damn problem. You don't get an email saying, remember all those problems I called you about yesterday? Well, I solved them and I'm sending you a check. That just doesn't happen, right? So if you wake up in the morning for the first hour, don't answer anybody's email. You can send out as many emails as you want, because remember, your inbox is your defense, your outbox is your offense. They also will not go onto social media. They will not. Why? Because everybody on social media is skinnier, sexier, wealthier than you, and they're all just as screwed up. They're just lying. Right? So you get social media depression. You start off your day thinking about everybody's problems and depressed on why you can't be like everybody else. Right? Instead, they set goals in the morning. They read goals, or they find a place that they are one with spiritually, their family. They're focused on what they want to accomplish in life, and they find the time to be by themselves. Because if you wake up in the morning, you have all these emails, you have a cell phone, you have a bunch of things there. The kids got to go to school. You turn on the radio, the world is blowing up again. Then you go to the office, you're speaking to people, then you go to a dinner. You're never by yourself. And they take time to be by themselves and home in on what they want to accomplish. They also, the next point, they set a very firm schedule for their family, for their loved ones. Even if it's as cold as, I'm going to call my mother at 4:45 just to tell her I love her. I'm going to make sure I do this with my daughters or my son. Why? Because you end up scheduling everybody else instead of your family. You kiss your kids, you kiss your husband or wife, you say, I'll see you later. And before you know it, 20 years is gone and the kids are off with their own family. Instead, you'll schedule what time to be on the train, what time to be at a conference call, what time to be at a restaurant, what time to be, here and there, but you don't schedule time with your family, and you turn around, and that's the most important reason that you even existing, but that's the only thing you won't schedule. Right? Another thing, and the most important thing they do, is they put their health first. They ask questions about their health. And the reason I found this is as I interviewed Wendy Williams and I was realizing what she was going through, I would go out and now get an executive physical. How many people here know what an executive physical is? Okay, one, two people. So an executive physical is when they pushed you through all kind of machines like a hamster for 2 days. You know, and it costs a good amount of money, but you know, as I pass by Louis Vuitton and Mercedes, the stores are packed with people, and they have that kind of money. This is about $5,000 or $7,000, and that's a lot. I understand a lot of people don't have it. But I went and got an executive physical. Now, I've gotten a physical every single year of my life. The doctor takes my blood, he holds something on me and tells me to cough, and then he spanks me on my ass and I walk out the door, right? And I kind of say, yeah, image. No problem. Yeah. But through this executive physical, they said, you know, I'm checking these, whatever these called, cautery veins, whatever it is. I never get the name right. They saw a little nodule on my thyroid. They said, you know, I think you should check it out. I check it out. They say, hey, maybe you should take that thing off. It's a little nodule in your thyroid. The 1 hour surgery becomes 3.5 hour surgery to remove stage 2 cancer from my body that I've had in my body for 5 years. Now, my doctor felt my throat every year. He didn't feel this marble of stage 2 cancer that was slowly moving to my lymph nodes. And what I realized about successful people is they constantly ask why. You see, you'll look at your P&L statement, you'll look at the ratings, you'll look at the inventory, you'll look at the, you know, things in the house to say, how can I make this better? How can I make this cheaper, faster? How can I get more employees? How can I convert more sales? But you'll go to the doctor and he'll do the random tests and you'll leave and say, I know I'm not feeling well, but hey, he said I'm okay. You won't ask why. They constantly ask why. And they constantly ask why because they want early detection because you don't have anything if you don't have your health. And I noticed that that's a priority that successful people take. So, you know, these are a lot of the things I'm finding in the book, and they have nothing to do with working more.
Right.
But it makes you more efficient.
That's so powerful. And getting back to the health, and, you know, we do Wellness Wednesday on my show because when I look at the statistics, Black people are always, you know, the worst in every category. Yeah. You know, and the highest rate of, you know, heart disease and diabetes and all of these things. And it's not because we're unhealthy people. Yeah. Per se, naturally, genetically, is because, you know, for a lot of reasons, we don't trust the medical industry. It's been really horrific with testing us and experimenting and things in the past. And there is, you know, a bias in a lot of places. But we're scared. A lot of us don't want to hear the bad news culturally. We've been taught to just kind of move on.
Yeah, hide. And, you know, and a lot of people ask me, why did I go out and I spoke about, you know, my cancer? And the reason why I spoke about it, because first of all, I'm cancer free. And that we normally
let's take a moment for that.
Thank you. And I know it's a super sensitive topic because so many people have lost so many people near and close to them that it's a sensitive topic. But my dear friend Big Ange had passed away, and I remember watching her on Dr. Oz. And like many of us, when we see these people on TV that have gotten to the point where they're speaking about it, you're watching them whittle and die in front of you, and you stick your head in the sand and go, oh my God, I don't want to get hit by that invisible bus, when you don't realize that you can get in front of it. Right. So if you can go out and get early detection for a mammogram, pap smear, colonoscopy, endoscopy, you have a much better chance of winning the fight. So I wanted people to see me because I'm hanging out drinking and partying.
Yeah, you are.
The reason why is because, you know, I made that a priority.
But had you known going in that you actually were going in for cancer surgery?
I did not know.
Right, but had you known, would that have had to do? Because your mental is very important. You know,
yes, it would have been scary, but, you know, after I had gotten the surgery, you're never just out of it, right? So I had to go various different times to keep getting tested to see where it has traveled, if it has traveled. Still, I'll always be monitoring, you know, if I've had that in my body, it can still come back. But I have two choices: ignore it and let it control me, or do the best I can to control it.
Have you changed your diet?
I have.
Okay. What was Daymond doing before? And so before you had the executive examination, did you have any symptoms?
No. So I've been decently healthy. You know, when I started making a lot of money, I gained probably about 40 pounds when I was about 30 because I realized I can go into Lowry Steakhouse and eat everything I want. and I did eat everything I could. But you know,
like
I
reminiscing. Look like that.
Those down,
that Seneca,
man, the pop over bread. But I would later on start investing in companies like CrossFits and getting in shape. But I happened just to stop really eating any meat or chicken just recently because I watched that damn
What the Hell.
I knew I didn't want to watch that show because I knew that I love Al Bubba Baker's ribs so much. But I'm constantly trying to figure out better ways to be healthier.
Yeah,
it's not something you just boom have the answer to. Again, you know, like if you read the book, you may relate to somebody today who's the young kids movement watches who are doing $100 million because they're 25 years old. You may have to pick the book back up, you know, in another 15 years and say, well, I'm no longer that young spring chicken. Let me get some techniques that somebody else is doing now, right? And it's the same thing with your health.
I couldn't agree more. Daymond John is in the house. Rise and Grind is the book, but it's more movement. You know, as I was going through the stories, you know, the power of it is that there is that relatability. You're going to find somebody in there that you can relate to.
100%.
I love the story of Gary Vee just because I just watched a documentary about him. And it's like you think about somebody, you know.
You know, Gary Vee's crazy.
No, that's why I related to him.
Yeah.
I think.
I was doing an interview with him and his shoe was untied. And he said, you know, I walked down the street and people will go crazy when your shoe is untied. They'll stop you in the street. Hey, man, your shoe's untied. I said, well, why don't you tie your shoe? He said, I don't have time to tie my shoe. I said, well, what about when you're taking a crap? Just tie your shoe at the same time. He said, I take a crap only in the morning. But doesn't more of his time get wasted by stopping people to say, leave me alone about my shoe? Very special individual.
Yes. So are you, Daymond.
I'm just pointing out some of the things that I'm observing about Gary Vee.
Hilarious. The biggest change you've made in the last 20 years?
Not trying to keep up with the Joneses. And
who were the Joneses 20 years ago?
The Joneses is everybody, and everybody's trying to keep up with the Joneses. So I'll give you an example. Listen, over 65% of athletes and/or lotto winners are bankrupt 3 years after winning the lotto or leaving the league. And whether you're somebody in the neighborhood who's trying to say you got a good car or a good chain, or you're a millionaire saying I only fly private because everybody on Instagram is on jets, you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? And when I realized that I don't need, why am I showing anybody anything or taking a picture for anybody that I really don't like, actually? Why am I doing that? And I think not keeping up with the Joneses and not trying to impress people is actually the way I started FUBU. Because when I started FUBU, to be a young, straight male, a heterosexual male, to be a designer, you're perceived as gay. Now, I have no issue with anybody's sexual preference, and I didn't care if people call me gay because I'm confident of the man that I am. But several of my partners that had left they felt bad because most of our friends were drug dealers, and imagine a tough drug dealer saying, hey, Daymond, why don't you sell some drugs? No, I'm going to make these hats. They laughed at me. I didn't care about that, right? And I would look, and later on in life, I'd realize, who else we laughed at? The kid who was studying music theory, the geek who was studying music theory, who ends up becoming Pharrell, will.i.am, Dr. Dre. The geeks also in school, the nerds who became Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Michael Dell, right? The ones who were in the damn wrestling class, all, with the little Speedos on, wrestling, who became UFC fighters. I realized that we all look at the people and everybody else and we put them down, but yet we're trying to compare ourselves to the other people who don't matter. And then as I got into and started to see so many of my friends who are athletes and people who don't have a career or don't have money anymore, I realized, let me get this straight. A private jet to and from Los Angeles, a round trip, is $60,000. You still can't lay on it. There's no bed there. There's usually not even a stewardess on it, right? And if you're sitting across from someone in a private jet, you're playing footsies with them. Now, me and my friend, I can go first class on JetBlue and get a pod, and they'll bring me this nice little minty vodka drink every time I want it. It's only going to cost me another 2 hours in traveling, but that's going to cost me $5,000 against $60,000. I'm going to save $55,000. And it's only going to cost me 2 hours? Who's going to sit here and say, I'll sit for 2 hours to get paid $55,000? Now, equate that looking over 10 years. To operate a jet is $5 million. Over 10 years, that's $60 million. In pre-tax, it's $100 million over 10 years, right? Think about how much more you have to work, and who's getting paid? The fuel company, the jet, and the pilot, right? I don't need to keep up with the Joneses. I'm cool. Catch me on, catch me on JetBlue in the front pod.
I love it. Where are you going from here? What's your next move, Daymond John?
What do you mean, in life?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I have the honor and the pleasure of investing in so many of these companies that I owe them the value and the respect of dedicating myself to them for a couple of years, 5 to 7 more years at least, because every year that I invest in a company, you really don't flourish or die in 7 years. So I owe them that time. And then, the responsibility of being a public person who everybody can relate to, because if I can make it, anybody can make it. I think it comes with, I'm human. Every single day I wake up, I want to do something. I want to stop human trafficking. I want to take illegal guns off the street. I want to bring clean water to people. I want to have financial intelligence for young people. I want gender equality. I want to make sure that people of all colors are respected and valued. So every day I want to save the planet. I want to save the seals. Every day I have to reset myself and do the rise and grind and focus on one thing, because I can't be everything to everybody, right? And I can't just always try to do all these things. So I need to kind of focus in and hunker down on something that I need to make a real change in the world. So I think that, over the next 20 years, I just want to find a way to just really make a change in people, in somebody's life, whether it's a pet, whether it's stopping human trafficking or something else like that.
All right. I'm going to keep up with you, because I'm in the same place.
That's
and
right.
Focusing is an important thing. A lot of people have talents, many talents, and they want to do everything that
exactly.
But you can't do it all.
Can't do it all.
And I think that's the toughest thing for a lot of us to recognize. Find that one thing and master it. We're talking with Daymond John, of course. Rise and Grind is the book. When I listened to you, I just recently interviewed Nick Cannon, and he's going back to school, which impressed the hell out of me, because, as you mentioned with this book, you never stop learning and you want to keep going. You didn't go to college. Is that a regret? Is that something that are you ever thinking of going back? And then what are you reading right now?
Yeah, so it is a regret in a sense, but being dyslexic, college would have been pretty challenging. But I do regret it because, as I shared with you the story of the lack of financial intelligence, if I went to college, I would have learned the fundamentals of finance.
Is that what you would have studied? Not fashion?
Now knowing,
right.
I would have studied it. I don't know what I would have studied. I was very confused. I did the whole, I'm going to take a year off, and a year became forever. I did go to film school, NIFA, to study a little bit more about film and positioning and things of that nature. And what was the other part of the question?
What are you reading?
What am I reading? Well, every 2 years I read Think and Grow Rich again, so I can absorb. Yeah, Napoleon Hill, so I can absorb more information. I read books. I love studying Genghis Khan. He was somebody who went into battle. He would go and change the ways that a river was flowing 10 years prior to going in to invade the territory. So he was thinking way ahead of the battle, way before he went in. I like Blue Ocean Strategy, and I like all the fundamental books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Who Moved My Cheese, 1 Minute Manager, all the books for professional help. I love Tim Ferriss's new book, Tribe of Mentors. Gary Vee's books are always absolutely astonishing and amazing. I read a lot of the guys who are currently coming out today that I value and I respect.
I like that. I like your list. There's a wealth gap. I think the statistic is 237 years it's going to take to close a wealth gap between blacks and whites. When I hear that, it saddens me, but I also somehow don't believe it, because we spend $1 trillion. And I'm looking at the amount of money that's spent in our community, yet the dollar doesn't circulate. If you could have a magic wand to fix that, where would you start?
It would start with It was started at an earlier age of financial intelligence when kids are starting to understand how to work and live with finance. Because whether it's African Americans or people in general, that's the only thing we're not taught is financial intelligence. But yet at the age of 16 or 17, we can take $250,000 worth of loans on ourselves and credit cards, and then we have that debt that we're paying off. African Americans, we would have to do the same, just really dig deep in the earlier stages and show them the value of where they can save. And if you teach entrepreneurship at a younger age, it does a couple of things. First of all, it shows kids who may not have the right resources around them that there is a way to empower yourself. As a presidential ambassador for President Obama, as we travel the world, and whether it was talking to the kids in Compton or talking to the kids in the streets of Kenya, usually when kids are they go out and they have poor spending habits, is because usually they have poor resources to put money and or understand how it works. And usually when around the globe, if somebody who is now a young adult only needs, in Kenya, if you only need $5, a week to feed your family, but if you can't make that, then if somebody says to you, hey, why don't you pick up this gun? I'll give you the $5. You're going to be susceptible to the people who are thriving off of you. However, if you know how to pick up your cell phone and make $5 by doing this with your cell phone, then you're not going to be a liability. You're going to be a mentor in the community. You're going to be a taxpayer. Domestic violence is going to go down. So I think it's really the education that we need to our younger generation, but they're overpopulated with a lot of media and wrong images that affect them negatively.
Yeah, that's why we reverse engineer on the Karen Hunter Show. We do a lot of that. We also take callers, right? So because we have a live audience, I think it'll be nice to get them in on it. We were talking with Daymond John.
Let's rock.
The book is Rise and Grind, and I'm going to just go to the list that we had some. I didn't vet them. I'm just going to go right off. All right, so where's Ron Johnson? Right here. Ron, welcome to the Karen Hunter Show.
How you doing?
You're on with Daymond John.
I'd like to say I love what you're doing, Karen. I love your show from WWRL days. But my question is, you probably answered it already for me. When writing or managing business, how do you keep the creative passion going?
The creative passion, I keep really smart, younger people around me. And older people around me. I think that one of my best assets is the fact that I like to take in information from various amount of people and cipher out what I think is the best. And it's not necessarily going to be the best, but even if it's not, I'm going to try it, and we're going to fail and fail fast. And I think that's what innovation is. It's really taking in insight from everybody. So I just try to keep really smart people around me.
Okay. Let's go to Jean. Oh, okay. Y'all are sitting in order. Hey, Jean.
Hi, Daymond. I have a business
question. Wait, are you
for
nervous?
A little.
Okay, we're all family here.
I'm
I
a
control you.
fourth generation co-owner of a family-owned business. It's been around for 99 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And over the last couple of years, we've been able to grow and expand the business in different areas. So what are some tips you can give about growing the business from a typical mom and pop to a larger company?
Well, first of all, you have to decide on if that's something you want to do. Try not to take in outside funding if you don't have to, because then all of a sudden you're working for somebody else. Today we're in a technical age. How can you replicate yourself in various different ways? How can you sell globally? I don't know your business, so I can't give you those answers. Are you selling soft goods, hard goods, consumer package?
We're in the restaurant and food business.
Restaurant and food business. And do you sell the food as a standalone product as well to grocery stores and things of that nature?
No, it's a fast casual restaurant called Walter's Hot Dogs. So we specialize in hot dogs and food service, and think of like a McDonald's or.
Yeah. And so before getting instead of getting super granular on it, because obviously we are limited with time. I try to really come at everything with the everyday man's approach. There's only 3 ways to deal with a customer: acquire a new one, upsell a current one, or make one buy more frequently. Which one is the best way for you to grow the business? Right? That's just something you have to think about.
Man, you know your stuff. All right, let's go to. Thank you.
Because I lost so much
That's
over
it.
so many times.
So
I know
how many failures do you say you had?
today?
No, to date. How many failures
Today?
have you had? Oh, today. I see you. Okay.
Yeah. I can't count them.
All
Too
right.
many.
I love that.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a failure though, because you
It's
learn
not.
from
It's
each
a
and every one.
process.
Okay. Patricia, where are you? Patricia Chin? Okay.
What's up,
Hey,
Patricia?
Okay.
It's so nice to be here and nice meeting you.
Thank you.
So my question is, I'm a small business owner and my friend here, and we rise and we grind from morning till night. I was just wondering, in your current situation, you're very successful now. What is your day? What are your days like?
So my days vary. I travel 250 days a year. But the fundamentals of my day is every single night that I go to bed and every single morning I wake up, I read 10 goals. 6 of them expire in 6 months, and the other 4 expire in 3 years, 5 years, 10, and 20 years. The reason I read the book Think and Grow Rich, and it showed me how to read goals, is a very specific technique, and you can find it in Think and Grow Rich or Brian Tracy's books. The reason I read them before I go to bed is the last thing I think about when I go to sleep. The reason I read them when I wake up is the first action I take. And they start to compound over the course of that time. After that, I try to put something healthy in my body, and I try to do something to pump my adrenaline up, whether it's doing 50 push-ups, 100, something like that. And then I do exactly some of the things that I've been learning from the book. I started working out early in the day. I used to work out at night because I used to think that, well, my emails are not going off as much. Plus, because of all the caffeine or whatever I may have me, I need to really get tired so I can rest easily. I started working out in the daytime. I've never been a morning person, but I realized that I'm more productive during the day because I worked out earlier on in the day. And if I looked at my life over the course of a month, I saved 2 days off of my month by doing that. So again, adjusting to the book. So those are a couple of the fundamentals and the things I do.
All right, great question. Let's take Aileen. Okay.
What's up, Aileen?
Hi, it's Aileen Ward. The question that I have is, I have a small business as well as Patricia. We're friends, and I've failed a few times, and people are always saying, "Oh, just pick yourself back up," and get back. But is there anything else that you can give me besides the basic pick yourself back up? Like, what advice would you give to someone like me? Besides just get up and run?
Well, what do they mean by, what are you saying by pick yourself up? Reopen the business, don't close it down?
Like, just don't give up. Like, people are always telling me, don't give up. Just,
Yeah, but it's easy for them to say that, right? You have to take inventory of yourself personally. Remember, your assets are what feeds you, your liabilities are what eats you. And are you in business for everybody else? Have you done everything, left everything on the field? Are you in the business 5, 7, 10 years? Is the business calling you, or are you just raising more money to work for the business? What do you value in life? Is it more time with your family? Is it challenging yourself? These are very personal issues. You can't have anybody tell you to quit or to keep going forward. This is when you sit there and look in the mirror and write that obituary, are you enjoying life? Because I can get up, when I was doing FUBU, I got up every day and I was so excited about it. But yet I still worked at Red Lobster. I worked at Red Lobster for 5 years while doing FUBU because I made $30,000 a year. That became $150,000 over 5 years. I had medical, right? I was taking home all the food from the kitchen after the end of the night, right? And I had all the waiters and waitresses helping me at when I went out, right? So I used that business to help create FUBU. If I had just quit everything and just went straight out on FUBU, I'd have had to do $2 million in business.
And look at you today. Oh my God. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. I had a
Daymond
good time.
John, I love you.
I felt like a little shrink.
No,
I like
this
it.
is good. This is good. We're gonna talk more. Rise and shine. Listen, rise and grind.
There you
That's
go.
right. Outperform, outwork, and out hustle your way to a more successful and rewarding life. The one and only Daymond John. Thanks for being a part of this today.
Thank you for having me. Karen, thank you so much.
Thank you.